Good evening. Can you hear me? Oh, great. So my name is Penny Mills. I'm the Executive Vice President and CEO of ASAM, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this special performance session with Joseph Green. As you know, he is a spoken word artist, a motivational speaker, and an educator. How many of you heard Joseph yesterday morning? Well, I know that's why you're all back. Is there anybody here who hasn't heard him already?
Oh, geez.
Well, you are in for a treat because what you're going to experience is going to touch your heart and inspire you, because I know that's how I felt yesterday and how I'm going to feel when we're done tonight. So without much further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Joseph Green, our friend. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. I'm done. I'm out of here. I left my folder on this table. Sorry. How's everyone doing? I see where you wanted to go with that, and that's where I want you to go with it. No, it should be. I know it's the Saturday night, right? And everyone's like, I'm going to go to the hip, cool spoken word session and have a party. And so that is what I'm actually interested in doing. I'm interested in having a bit of a party. I've been flirting with the idea of some sort of dance routine. I don't have anything nailed down yet, but if you are inspired at any point, take your track up to the guys at the sound booth. They love it when people randomly walk up to them with electronics. Plug it in, and let's get down. So in the spirit of levity that I just tried to induce into the room, can we try the welcoming part of this thing one more time? You were here the other day. I'm not going to give you the 3,000 reasons why it's important for us to, cheer when we have the opportunity to cheer. Let's just jump on in, all right? So how's everybody doing tonight? Hooray. And that sounded sarcastic, but it wasn't. So tonight is going to be completely different than what I thought it was going to be. And, I've known I was going to be here for a couple of months, and I've been mulling over what to do in this space. The original version was we were going to work with some young people here in New Orleans, have them write poems, and then have them perform the poems here the day of, and so on and so forth. We had a problem finding, teenagers who wanted to do poetry on a Saturday with a guy they did not know. So what we ended up doing was recording some of the young people that I work with in DC, and so we're going to have a film viewing, right? So that'll happen. And then we're going to have a conversation, a discussion. I want this to be interactive. It's a late night thing. It's cool. I don't have any slides. There's no scientific data going to be shared here with you tonight, which may or may not be a relief to some of you. There you go. Compound fractions. Is that a thing in your profession? No. Okay, cool. It's the brainiest thing I could think to say right now. But before we get started, it's my nephew's birthday. And yeah, well, he's 18. 18. And he's watching on the YouTube live stream. And so I wrote a poem for my nephew 7 years ago on this day. So if you don't know, April is Poetry Month. And poets have a thing where they try to write a poem every day of the month in commemoration of Poetry Month. So when my nephew was 11, I wrote this poem for him, and I wanted to perform it for the last time. Every time he's in the building, I find a reason to do this poem, and I think it has embarrassed him the entire 7 years. But as you will hear in the poem, it's not really something like an 11-year-old could really comprehend. When he was 11, I just wanted him to know that he was important enough for somebody to write about. And I knew that as he got older, the parts of the poem would make more and more sense. And so right now, real quick, if everyone could just say, "Happy birthday, Cameron." 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday, Cameron.
I'm going to start off with a poem. And I'm going to tie this in. ASAM people, promise. I'm not just doing this for my sake. It's a perk, right? It's a perk. You're going to get up here, you're going to share. Every once in a while, you get to share something you like. I love you, Cameron. And to your father, my brother, good job. And to my sister, your mom, thanks. And to my parents who are also in the room, not so bad. I'm here. Sophie Bell, you got a poem coming soon. For my nephew, on his 11th birthday, I'm sorry for how incomplete this poem will always be. The sun will come out, not always tomorrow. At times it'll rain for weeks. It will seem like lifetimes. Your uncle has known monsoons. I have drank them straight, no chaser for you. So when I tell you, like your grandmother told me, that this too shall pass, you will know I mean it. You were so cool. Keep that. It is always those that don't care what the world says that cultivate cool. It is always those that don't care what the world says that cultivate cool. Be cooler than me. I ran stereotype first into the skewed acceptance of the popular kids. It eventually left me unraveled. I am now proudly all poetry and nerve endings. Do you? It'll be easier in the end. Rebel against two-dimensional standardized test confines. Be bound only by the infinite depths of your mind. Embrace the barbed wire paradox of existence. Inhale, relax, get up, keep moving. Time is coming for you. She is already here. Try not to break anything you love. Most times it'll be unavoidable. When given the option, make love only, make love often. Hate will deplete your God-given reservoirs of optimism and hope. Cynicism is a coward's substitute. Even when clever, it never builds relationships, only barriers. Ignore everything I said so far in this poem, or don't. It was always your choice, and it never was. Some will say that everything that happens for a reason. Others will say it is already written. It is all absurd. Happiness and blessings are not seeds sowed in the field of deserve. You will only ever find happiness in the things that you do. Do something greater than yourself. And above all else, find something to believe in. Your father is not perfect. I know. He is my brother. He is heavy. In moments of love-infused anger, he will act out in a manner that may seem rash, harsh, even judgmental, just as he did with his father. Forgive him. Though he will not ask, do it anyway. For until you look down the barrel of a bassinet, God to a life you created, you will never be able to understand the sacrifices made for you to be able to hear this poem and understand it. Your parents will fight. Your grandparents will fight. They will be cruel to each other. They will attest that every decision they make is in your best interest. They will do this in such a self-righteous manner as to insinuate they have forgotten that someone did the exact same for them, mostly getting it wrong. No matter who says you are not, you will always be all right. Remember what I said earlier. Forgive them, though they will not ask. Cameron. We will always be half-winged angels, imperfect and incapable of flight. My angel, jump anyway. Dive every day for the possibility of feeling the wind of greatness across your face just once before you die. Love, your Uncle Joe. Thank you. So as I said, this is going to be rather informal. If any point in time a question jumps up in your mind, save for the times where you know I'm performing, feel free to raise your hand. I mean, you can do so otherwise, but it'll look awkward. So I just want to start off with a little bit more about myself and more about the work that I do. And then we're going to watch a video, an example of the work that I do with young people. And then we're going to talk about why that matters. And then we're going to hear some more poems, and then we're going to learn some things that I hope you can take back with you, actual tangible tools that you can use back in your communities or maybe just at home at your desk, things that can help you, I hope, be more effective agents of change and positivity in your individual communities. So a little bit more about myself, what I do for a living, full-time is I'm the youth programs coordinator at an organization called Split This Rock. And I started a nonprofit called Poetry Now, after-school creative writing programs. It was absorbed by this organization, so now I run after-school creative writing programs in about 31 schools in the DC metropolitan area. And by run, we have teaching artists. I create the curriculum, I train the teaching artists, and we do big festivals where we bring all the young people together called Brave New Voices, Louder Than a Bomb, and the Hyper Bowl, which is a play on hyperbole. I came up with that one. Thank you. Didn't deserve applaud, but I felt really good about it. And so the purpose of my work, which is really sometimes hard to explain, I'm actually happy my family's listening because I've been trying to do this for like a decade. The purpose of my work is to give voice to those who don't have voice. It's a very simple thing, but it seems abstract and intangible. And in a world where like people don't have food and disease is knocking on the door and bombs are falling, it seems kind of frivolous to have a profession where people get paid to give voice. However, the institutions that we've put in place to do this, supposedly, our education system, is so focused on testing that they don't put enough emphasis on the individual. Now, that is not against any teacher in the room. I work a lot with teachers, and I love what they do. I love what they do so much that I've dedicated my life to making their life easier. They look outward as opposed to inward to the system to find people to come in to give to their young people that which they wish they could do in the classroom. And so that's the purpose that we serve. When people say about young people and teenagers that they're no good or that this generation doesn't care or these kids are more concerned about their cell phones and Xboxes than they are about actually getting out in the streets and doing something, what I hear is not an indictment of the youth, but an indictment of the people who were supposed to get them prepared, right? And so when we want young people to get out there and vote and be concerned about the topics and issues that matter to us, and they don't show up, we didn't invite them. We didn't prepare them for the party. They're sitting at home feeling disillusioned, wondering when somebody is going to come and give them agency over the things that they want to see done in this world. And so that's why I do what I do with young people, and that's what it is. Now, the same thing applies for all of you, the young at heart, because too often we get detached from the reasons why we do what we do. We talked about that yesterday morning for those of you who were here. The whole purpose of what I did or tried to do in that 20 minutes was re-engage you with your fire, with your passion, with the thing that got you into this work, so that when you do all of those things that you don't enjoy doing, you can call back to yourself and call back to that place and ride out the storm. Something my mother told me when I was young, and I like to believe it's original, we're going to find out, is hold on to the good times, because they are few and far between, to get through the bad times. It will protect you. But that's something I learned later in life that's practice. It's not a given. It's not willpower. It's daily affirmation. It's writing down what's good in our life. It's making a list in the morning and a list in the evening of only the things that went well. It's putting ourselves around positive people. It's understanding and appreciating our victories. It's practice. No one, but you guys know more than anybody else what practice means. Because if you stopped when you left medical school and expected that same knowledge to be applicable, easily accessible to you 10 years later when you get that one person who has that random symptom, then you are not going to be the best versions of yourself in that moment. You're not going to be the best doctor that you need or the best nurse practitioner that you need to be in that moment. And so the same thing I think with positive energy, the same thing I think with love and passion and the fury that it takes to get through and do what we all want to do, which is make the world a better place. That's why if you're here to make the world a better place, just raise your hand real quick. Because faces have gotten real serious in here, and I was like, oh no, I lost them. All right, hands down. Cool. And so with that, I want to give you all an example of what I do coming through the mouths of other people. So we're going to watch a video here in a moment. And it's two young ladies, one who's still in high school, one who graduated a couple of years ago. They've been working in our programs at Split This Rock for the older one for 4 or 5 years, and the newer one, this is her second year. She's a junior in high school. And I really want to point that out because when you see her speak, you're going to be like, she's a junior in high school? And not everybody is as good as these young people, right? Like what I'm advertising here is not how amazing of a poet these young people are. What I'm advertising here are the topics that they're talking about. What I'm advertising here is their bravery to share. And then after the video, there's an interview where you get to hear from them themselves why they do what they do. The idea is one day we'll have them here with us and you can ask the questions. I tried to guess what you would ask and I asked them on camera. And so now, without any further ado, we're going to watch that video. And there's a phrase I have to say to get it rolling. And I believe it is, play that beautiful bean footage. My name is Joseph Green. I'm a spoken word artist, poet, educator, activist, and I am honored to be able to bring to you these videos. Part of my work has been working with young people in an effort to use poetry, spoken word, art as a means for them to be able to tell their story, heal, find a common bond with other young people who are going through the same thing, destigmatize the conversations that we need to have around substance use disorder and mental illness, and be able to tell those in power, those who make policy, exactly what it is they need and exactly what it is they're going through, and begin a dialogue that can actually perpetuate the change in the system that we need to save lives. I salute the bravery of these young people, and I hope that this experience is as mind-opening for you as it has been for me and the young people who have shared their stories with you. That's y'all.
Hi, my name's Anaya. I'm 17 years old, and my poem is called Dependence. The girl in my math class thinks the best way to go is by her own hand. Says she wants to wear a noose like a necklace and know how it feels to have sadness dance by her bedside. I want to lend her mine, to give her the bits of this brokenness and let her try it on like secondhand sweater, feel the weight of every suicide note on her chest and show her how it feels to make breathing a chore, make her rethink making this seem less burden and more beauty. But who am I to judge her when I'm still writing my sickness in present tense? As if depression and I still be lovers entangled beneath my bed sheets instead of a distant darling that smells like yesterday's dirty laundry, the kind I never bothered to do anyways, because for once something smelled worse than the stench of death I grew far too fond of, because what else would you expect someone who is already dead to smell like? And maybe I like being sick, maybe it makes me feel interesting or feel anything at all, because the numbness is enough to drive me crazier than they already think I am. I'd rather be suffering than stoic, and maybe that makes me a masochist for wanting to die just to feel alive, just to feel at all. And is it still relapse when you never really recovered? When you threw away the razors but didn't stop hurting yourself, just learned to make scars that don't show up on skin? Is it still relapse when you're doing it because you love yourself? Because your body believes it's bloodshed, a sacred kind of beauty, thinks you more martyr than murder? Is it still self-harm when it doesn't hurt anymore? When it's so easy to want to stop breathing, it's like breathing, still self-harm when you like it. When it feels good to feel this bad, still bad. When it's more security blanket than sickness, feels safe in its grasp because you know if you go, it'll be by your own doing. Without it, you are a glass half empty, and it's no fun having a head above water when you are used to being so full of sadness you're drowning. And when the girl in my math class says she wants to know how it feels to be suicidal, will want to lend her my sadness, but won't. Because after all, what am I without it?
Hi, my name is Lauren, and the name of my poem is So Far Gone. 3 teenagers, squished into the back seat, cloudy. The blunt is finally passed, and ash falls, burns a hole in her sweatshirt. She doesn't notice. She wonders, just how far gone are you when you know how to manipulate the backseat of a car better than your confidence? Just how far gone are you when you can read minds and take orders before they are even spoken? Just how far gone do you have to be before you realize you're going in the wrong direction? See, nobody ever asks after the kids who familiarize themselves with the contours of a backseat, or the kids who can twist and bend our bodies to angles too acute and obtuse to ever be considered right. Nobody ever asked how corrupted their minds have to be to feel at home in the confines of a clouded car. Nobody ever asked about the correlation between drug use and sexual assault, smoke and ashes, liquid submission. How far gone do they have to be? How far gone was I, that I couldn't bear to lift a hand, kick a leg, in defiance? How far gone are you when your body feels like noodles in the hands of a 2-year-old? Putty, clay, ready to be molded and folded, roll boy turned Pinocchio. Lifeless limbs, soulless stares, heavy hands, liquid lust, still smoke. Nobody ever asks of the kids so depressed that they get high just to balance out their lows so backseats are all they know. How far gone do they have to be before somebody realizes that they are not doing this for fun? Memorizing contours and controls of backseats, taking orders before they are spoken, too far gone to protest. How far gone do we have to be for somebody to send help? How far gone will we be when somebody finally sends help?
Because I am going to show this to them when I get back to DC, this would be an appropriate time to applaud for them if you think it's All right, so now it's audience participation time. First and foremost, I'd like to just ask people how they're feeling, how the poems made them feel, how seeing young people talk about those topics made them feel. I'm not going to lead it any more than that, but let's raise hands, speak loudly, because we don't have a lavalier mic going around. Oh, is that what's happening right now? Oh, you guys are awesome. We want to hear everything. So be thinking of your questions. Does anyone have a statement or emotion that they would like to share? Okay, cool. We're going to start up here. And then one. First and foremost, can we give a round of applause to Molly and Jen, please? Because aside from dealing with like all the speakers and stuff, now they have to run around with microphones. But thank you. All right, so yeah, please.
First, I was very impressed with their eloquence and their poise, but that pales in comparison with their emotion. And the first teenager who was talking about her depression and suicidality, really hit home for me. One, I was a teenager just like that with suicidal thoughts and depression. Two, my nephew, who is 16 years old, is suffering from the same thing. So it hits very close to home. It's a real problem for kids and adults. And, it made me want to reach out into that screen and, make everything okay for her, to let her know that life gets better, through time, that the raw emotion of teenagehood gets better over time, that the sharp edges get duller over time. It doesn't hurt as much as we go on. So it was very, very powerful, hit very close to home, and breaks my heart just a little bit, but in a good way as well.
Yeah, I think that what I pulled from your statement and from doing this process, I pull a lot of patience from this, right? I know that the further we get away from a thing, the harder it is for us to like recall it. And most of the people in this room are as far away from 16 as, I was going to say something mathematical, like we're as far away from 16 as 16 is from birth. Some of us are over the age of 32, right? I'm not going to point you out, some of us. And I think that it's really important, especially if you're dealing with young people in your practice or just in your homes, to constantly remind yourself, that they are going through something that real. And not all of them have the ability to express it as eloquently as she did. So that's why it's important to make a space for those voices to speak for their generation. All right, 3 or 4 more people. Yes, please.
Yeah, first of all, I have a 23-year-old son who's struggling with depression, and I sometimes don't know what that's like, and especially the first girl was able to so eloquently say what that was like. I also want to say, when I'm with most adolescents, and when I was raising my son and was with his friends, it was everything's fine, everything's okay, yes, Mom, yes, Mrs. McShane, and I tried to ask the right questions. I'm trained to ask the right questions, but there's that sort of wall and blankness, and I'm so moved that there's a way to pull those feelings and share them past the generation, not just with their friends.
Yeah.
But
May I comment on what you just said? I think that I have been the cool uncle for thousands of young people. Like going into schools and being the dude who rolls up his sleeves and has tattoos and like sits down with his story and gets to be real with them. And I know there's an expiration date on that at some point in time, but that's why I train other people that are younger and look younger to do the same work. The idea that I try to tell parents, and I hopefully will be able to employ myself as a parent, is the world is going to influence your child regardless. What you can do or hope to do or try to do is make sure that they are around the type of influences that recognize their humanity and give them a space to share, even if you don't get to hear what's being shared. Because you definitely aren't seeing what's happening in the basement. You're not seeing what's happening in the back of the smoke-filled car. All you can do is hope to fortify them the best you can with the best role models that you can find. It's scary. Like and this is working with young people for 14 years before I actually made a young person. It's scary. And I'm scared for the young people that I'm not even blood related to. But that's the thing that I try to encourage them. The ones that go to college and call me up and are feeling bad and don't know what to do, I say, go find your tribe. Find them. They're down there. They're somewhere. Find somebody. You don't have to go talk to a counselor necessarily, but there are people down there that are ready to talk to you. So that's my comment on that. I appreciate your comment. Thank you. All right, 2 more. Yes.
Hi, you first asked what I felt.
Yes, please.
I felt sad, and I could feel it in my heart. I'm one of the few non-doctors here. I'm one of the very few. And I worked with, I'm a psychotherapist, and I work with teens I did work with teens like this for many years, and it reminded me that I every once in a while reflect and wonder, like, how are they doing now? And like you said, I have worry, I have hope, I have everything in between. I hope they're okay. I know some of them aren't. But I also felt really glad and I guess thankful to you because they now have the gift to express themselves, and that's a wonderful gift. That's the gift that, not giving them a fish, but teaching them how to fish.
Yeah.
So I just want to think that I just want to let you know that I think that that's great.
Thank you for saying so. Anyone dying to make a statement? You dying to make a statement? We got 1 more, and then I have another question, and then we have the second half of the video to watch.
when I saw that video, it made me think of, I spent many years in my career as a family doctor and then drifted into addiction medicine, and people asked me, why did I want to work with people like this? And, I said, well,
Sorry.
being in family medicine,
Yeah.
it's one of the lowest paid fields in medicine. And I thought, going into a subspecialty, that's the smart thing to do. So I picked addiction medicine, the only subspecialty to be paid less than
I was
family
about
medicine.
to say, it's like, how'd that work out for you?
But it let me know when you watch something like this, that's the reason that most of us in this room are doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's not for the money, it's for that type of person.
Yeah. And so I want to bounce off of that. The next question I was going to ask is, what do you think the intrinsic value of this type of thing is as far as a marketing tool? Because there's one part of my brain that's in there, and I'm working with that young person who's right in front of me. And there's the other part of my brain that I need to get this in front of other young people because, yeah, it's cool to have me come into your school or come and do an assembly, but I'm expensive and the internet's free, right? Open mics are free for the most part. So how do I convince these young people to do that and have the original phrase we came up with, courage under fire. Because the first time I did this, it was with a group of young people at T.C. Williams High School in Alexandria. Have you ever seen Remember the Titans? That's them. And it normally gets a bigger response. Like, it's cool, but maybe it's the topic. All right. And so they got up and did their poems in front of the entire senior class. It was their prom promise assembly, where before they go to prom, they normally get them in a room and they make them say a pledge not to drink or drive or do drugs on prom. So they were like, let's try something different. So I worked with the young people for like 2 or 3 weeks after school for 10 days total. And we came up with a show. It was 30 minutes long. It was just them doing poems talking about their experiences with drugs and alcohol. I told them, your job is not to just say no. That's not your job. Your job is to show your life as example. Find as many young people in the audience who are going through the same thing but have been shamed by the stigma to not say it out loud, and start the synapses popping, the collective brain of the school. And that's what I think we don't think about often enough, is how one young person can start a tidal wave of change in a school. And it's difficult because we work with a lot of scientists, and our people who give us money want proof. But we all know that I did a poem yesterday in front of 1,500 people, and something started. It's been talked about in rooms, and it's been shared with family members away. People have sent the poem off to someone who they think needs it. This video that we're watching went live on Facing Addiction's Facebook page this morning at 9 Central. And before I came in, had 22,000 views, right? So, Facing Addiction, yeah, it's on there. Yeah, if you don't know who Facing Addiction is, follow them. They're pretty cool. ASAM is tagged in it also, so you'll find it on ASAM's page also. It'll be up on YouTube, yada, yada, yada. But the video is up. And the point of that is to say that this can move the thing that matters the most, because you can't get to the science, you can't get to the proved methods of treatment if people aren't seeking treatment. The stat 2 of the 10 can get it, but there's another 40 that never walk in the door, that never try. How do we get to them? And I think also when we're talking about getting money to be used the way it's supposed to be used and getting laws to be enforced the way they're supposed to be enforced, that's personal preference. I know we live in a land of laws, but we choose whether or not to do those laws. And so if you don't have a direct connection with someone who is suffering like that, if you've never seen it, if no one's ever testified to you about it, you're just thinking about the bottom line. And that's what you serve, because that's the thing that makes more sense to you, because after all, it's a capitalistic society. But there's a way to move that metric, and I think that art is one of it. So if any of you are moved by what you've seen here this week, then it's on us to start incorporating that into our lives. It's posting a poem on your Facebook page for your friends to see. It's making the right kind of things viral. Cat videos are lovely. Lovely. When I'm down, that's where I go. All right? But more importantly, I think, is stop screaming into the wind. Why don't you understand? We have the numbers right here. Look how many people died this year. People die all the time of so many different things. If we don't have the ability to express, I'm staring right at you because we've locked gazes. This is not just for you, though. Go back home and solve the problem. No. Just your Facebook page is going to make the difference. No, I think that we have to put a face to it. The opposition, Hollywood, marketers who are trying to make money off of alcohol and the baser parts of ourselves, they got lots of money. They got lots of money. And if we are true to what we're doing, the goal here is to put ourselves out of business, right? So the only way to use our privilege the right way is to destroy the system that gives it to us in the first place, right? And to destroy that system, the first thing that we have to do is get the message from the people who are actually suffering out there. But more or equally important is to get your message out there. You are a walking encyclopedia of experiences that the world doesn't know about, right? And there's privilege, right? Doctor, patient? Confidentiality, yes. But your story is not confidential. How you feel is not confidential. Why you do what you do is not confidential. And if people don't know that, if people in your community don't know that, if you go to a church and the people in that church don't know that you work in addiction medicine and why you work in addiction medicine, then how badly do you really want to be out of work? Like, how hard are you pushing? Which is why I do what I do, which is go and tell people my story, because I could just go in and like, I'm a teacher and you should respect me because I'm being paid. Or it's like, you should respect me because all I want to do is make sure you don't have this same story. So what we're going to do now is we're going to watch the interview afterwards. It's just as short, but I asked them 2 or 3 questions, and when the interview is over, a little lighter, I'm going to do a poem and dance for you. Okay.
I think I wrote this poem for 2 reasons. One was to sort through and kind of figure out all the things that I was feeling in regards to my own mental health. And the second was because I feel like it's so important for not only youth, but youth of color to hear poems like this about mental health, to kind of release the stigma around it, because in the African American community especially, it's something that's not talked about. You keep it kind of hush-hush, you keep it in the closet. You know, they tell you, like, go to church, pray about it. Like, I wanted to write this poem to give not only myself a voice, but other people a voice for what might be going on inside of their head. I think one big correlation between addiction and substance abuse and mental illness, especially when it comes to youth, is sometimes when we say things about the way that we're feeling, we're not taken seriously. So we want to take it into our own hands and to make this feeling go away in any way possible that we can. So you start finding things, anything to take away how you're feeling. And I equate addiction a lot of the time with self-harm, because people look at it and they're like, oh, they're doing that to doing that to take away the pain. But I think addiction is the same thing. Kids who are self-medicating using pot or like prescription drugs are doing the exact same thing that kids who are self-harming are doing. It's us trying to do whatever we can to take away those feelings that we're feeling when people aren't listening to us. They're not getting us the help that we need. I hope if this poem could accomplish anything, it would be to either touch someone who is hearing it in a way so that they understand the way that they're feeling, or to wake up someone who might know someone who's struggling with mental illness and not understand why they are kind of stuck in that cycle of it.
I actually wrote this poem for a friend of mine. We had very similar situations that we've been through, dealing with drugs and sexual assault, and I felt like I was the only one, and I'm not. And I wrote that for him so that we could share our story. It's important to share the story because so other people won't have to go through the same thing. When you live your truth and you speak your truth out loud in a way that it heals other people so that they hear what you went through and they don't have to go through the same thing because they know better now. And it's also healing just in general for yourself when you write your truth onto paper and speak it out loud. There's healing in poetry.
Yeah. So it's 8:45 right now. Just a quick question. Does anybody feel really awful if we go to like 9:05, 9:10? Okay, cool. Good. How many people think, honest question, show of hands, that I fed them the answers? Cool. Just checking. So I'm assuming the opposite. You realize that that's their genuine opinion as to why they did it. Like everything that I'm sharing with you all about my experiences with young people wasn't me sitting in a room being like, I have a brilliant idea. It was like I tripped over a thing. I told my story. Someone said, this is how that made me feel. I was like, oh crap. Can this be duplicated? It can. And so that's where we are right now. We are at a space where I have done this work in schools throughout the country, but I mean, it's a drop in the bucket, really. My hope rather is to soon find a way that this becomes something that's regular. I have a curriculum, and you can email me or find me on Facebook or YouTube, or not Facebook or LinkedIn. That's the thing. If you're interested, it's free, but I have to give you the URL. But I want it to get out there as quickly as possible. People come up to me and say, hey, can you come do this in my community? Yes, I can. I'm also very expensive. But, and that because I'm I command a lot of money, but if you are a small clinic or a small school in a small town in a rural area, my plane fare is probably your budget, for your extra budget for things of this sort. So that's why we have to create systems and take advantage of the things that we already have in place to get these messages out there. But it's not going to work until we have the courage to possibly piss a couple of people off and put one of these things in a place where our friends who don't quite think the same way that we do can see it and hopefully be affected. So I'm going to do a poem because I promised. I'm going to dance because I promised. You think I'm joking. It's part of the poem. It's going to happen. It's going to be great. But before I do that, how many doctors, raise your hand? Cool. How many of you remember your first year self? First year doctor self? Okay, cool. When was the last time you spoke to that person? It's a weird question. I realize that. It insinuates that there's a way to time travel. And there is, as this poem will show you. I have a workshop that I do with young people. It's write a letter to your 30-year-old self so you don't forget, all the things that you said you were going to be when you were a young person. And it's fun. But I didn't want to do it because I was 30 when I started doing it. I'm write a letter to my 60-year-old self, which, against no 60-year-olds in the room, made me sad when I thought of that. And so I said, What I would rather do is go back and write a poem to my younger self in an effort to reconnect to that person and to remember the lessons that were pulled from the stories I've already lived. You know, we've all lived enough stories to fill several books. That's how we got here. Before I do the poem, this is something very interesting that I heard 2 days ago and I can't get out of my head. Louis C.K. was being interviewed and someone asked him if he regretted putting that letter out there to his fans about Donald Trump. And he said, I regret it, but I wouldn't take it back. And someone said, like, what's the difference? What is that? He said, well, if you go back and you take away all of your mistakes, you erase yourself. I'm sorry, Louis C.K., you're just a comedian. And I think that that's why it's important for us to do this ourselves. So I'll talk about this afterwards. Remind me to, when the poem is over, to talk about how you all can do this exercise without actually having to write a poem. Cool. All right. Is this stable? All right. In a dream, I saw the adolescent version of myself leaning against a wall at a middle school dance. Appearing nervous, with our head down, he seemed wanting, if not needing, of some advice. I pulled out a napkin, composed a letter, a literal self-help manual, slipped it into my own prepubescent hand, looked down and read, "Dear me, dance." Though you will not be good at it until your early 20s. Bear witness to how solar systems are created within the orbits of thighs, how stars always seem to burn out but shine on. As you two-step through universe, don't forget to breathe. As she approaches, it was meant to be. If not Big Dipper or supernova, you will discover painfully that the wonder behind dancing, like love, is not solely predicated on the idea that you will always have another there to do it with you. You will often find that you are doing dancing and loving alone, but don't you dare stop. Dear me, or best friend an imaginary turtle could have. Pick a job, a trade, a hobby, anything, just not only art. I'm hungry, and while this poetry is feeding my soul, the rest of me is famished. Dear me, or future obsessive compulsive, you have an addictive personality. Do not try drugs. You are going to like them a lot. They will cause you to forget, to lose things, most of which the universe will never see fit to give you a second chance with, all of which will break your mother's heart. Dear me, or would-be knight in shining armor, there are monsters underneath your father's bed. Those videotapes and magazines are not manuals. Only the wrong kind of women will want to be treated that way. Yes, there's such a thing as the wrong kind of woman. You will have hand in creating some. Warning, the people labeled broken on arrival cannot be saved, just loved and accepted as you will one day hope to be. Joseph, put down the blades. Lower the heat in the shower, pins are not tourniquets, paper, or poor Band-Aid. It will be years before poetry will attempt to yellow sun, red cape, Superman and save you. Stop it now. Your soul will heal long before those scars do. Dear four-eyed oracle, some wounds won't heal magically with mother's kiss, won't make sense for years to come. This is just a writing exercise. If I could actually give you life and a manuscript, the instructions would simply read, only change the parts where you hurt people. Everything else is miracle. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? You grow up to be me, a shattered but mending, sometimes unemployed, literary freestyle specialist with a vampire's thirst for the universe's lifeblood. And young man, I have loved you all along. Sincerely, Joseph LMS Green. Poem. All right, so I have a couple of things that I want to be able to give you to take back tangibly. I'm looking at you and it's reminding me of the thing. Perfect, that worked well. And then I'm going to do one last poem, which is one of my newest pieces. I've been taking it around the circuit, as it were, and I haven't memorized it yet because I'm still trying to get it right. And so, but it's dedicated to people who do this work. And so we'll end on that note. But in between there, if there are questions, start thinking of them. We have awesome people with mics. Not yet. After the tools I'm going to give you, then you can ask the questions, and then we'll do a poem, and then we can all go dancing, because I got nothing to do tonight. All right, so this exercise. Every writing workshop that I do, everything ends in a poem when I'm working with young people, but it doesn't have to. So this writing exercise was very simple. I posed the question, think of 5 major events in your adolescent life. The first one I thought of was that time that I was at the middle school dance with a girl who had the eyes that looked like the universe, invited me to dance, and I forgot that I couldn't dance, and then everybody laughed at me, and then I didn't dance again until I was in my early 20s. That was the first story, you know? And so that jumped out at me, and I was like, I learned something from there. And if this were the long version, or if you were middle school students, I was giving you a motivational speak, it would be, don't stop dancing. That's the idea behind that story. And so it goes, and they chant, and it's great. But the other one was when I was in school not going for theater. I would have loved to have gone for anything else and done theater on the side, because I was really, really, really hungry for a while. But I think, you know, going back to the Louis C.K. thing, look at me now, Mom, I'm on top of the world. That movie didn't end well, so we won't go there. So the other part was the addiction. The other part was learning the right way to have healthy relationships, and where, like, trying to figure out where the seed came that put it in my brain that, like, that's what a healthy relationship was, and so on and so on and so forth. And then at the end, there's a little bit of forgiveness, right? A little bit of acceptance, a little bit of understanding that all of these things culminated to make me who I am today, and gosh darn it, I'm a pretty good guy. And what I would ask you to do is the same thing. We would start the workshop, and I would say, think of 5 things that really made you who you are. You can do this tonight. You can do this on the plane back. Just 5 things that really that jump into your head. And now, once you've written those events down, you can just do it as a journal, or you can write them down in shorthand, and then you can elaborate. You can paint a picture. Or you can also think of it in the way of, if I wanted to give this to someone who is now a first-year doctor, what are the 5 things that really got me to where I am? The 5 biggest heartbreaks, the 5 biggest successes, the 5 biggest road obstacles. How did I get here? Because I think a lot of times we forget that we weren't born the age that we are right now. And that sounds like a really dismissive, like, obvious thing. But, you know, I don't remember being 6 years old. And I don't really remember being 12 years old. But I found a letter somewhere that told me that I had a really bad night at a dance. And I was like, oh, I should probably remember that. So before you lose it all, you and your lives are your greatest sources of motivation. Write it down. And then, God forbid, share it with somebody. I don't know who in here needed to hear what I had to say tonight. Somebody in here needed to hear what I had to say tonight. I didn't know who needed to hear what I had to say yesterday morning, but apparently it touched somebody. And I'm not even the best at what I do. Don't go looking for those people. Keep coming to me. But the point is, it's not, as I said about the young people up there, when I do this at a school, I'm there for one day, we got 45 minutes, and then the kids get up and perform. They are not writing pieces that are going to be published anywhere, right? But what the people remember, why the kids are happy when they see me, what they get excited about is that somebody gave them agency to tell their own story. And I'm giving you the same thing. Agency to tell your own story, because it's desperately needed. If you are interested in more writing prompts, writing workshops in the spirit of Poetry Month, find me online, slide into my DMs, as the young people say, which is send me a personal message for everyone who doesn't know what that means. Like, I don't know what it means. I shouldn't know what it means, except that I work with young people. Send me a personal message, Joseph LMS Green, or just go to my website, Joseph LMS, and click one of those things. I will send you the password if you are interested, or you think you have young people or teachers in your community, or you think that you might actually benefit from doing this work. It's all free, it's all online. We're revamping it this summer, so come and get it now. You can download it in a PDF. You don't even have to keep going back on. You can just keep it on your computer. So now Q&A. 4 or 5 questions, depending on how long they last, about anything, about the work I do, about myself, about the young people, about where we're hanging out afterwards, any of that. Are there anybody with any questions? I got a question right here. She got a microphone right beside you.
You had mentioned the marketing part. Are any of these out as DVDs or anything? After you spoke earlier, I went online and I looked up some of the stuff that you did, some of the things that were on YouTube. They are fabulous.
Oh.
Our adolescents and our great people, put them on the internet.
Okay, I will repeat it so she doesn't have to. Are these things online? Where are they? Because she believes that people can benefit from them. And the answer is yes. Myself, there are places where we have young people videos online. There's also Button Poetry. There's also other organizations that I can't think of off the top of my head, but not necessarily DVDs, but internet, which is where they are now anyway. And so it's a little bit of research. You know what I mean? Like, I define a video like this, I would type in spoken word poet, mental illness. See what comes up. I guarantee you something will come up. Spoken word poet deals with drugs or speaks about drugs. It'll come up, copy, paste the link, send it to somebody who thinks needs to hear it, or just post it on your page and give it to the universe. But it's out there. It's definitely out there. And my next project is to do more of those videos and kind of put it in my dream project. Anyone who's thinking about sponsoring dream projects, because I know all the money in the room. No. Is to go around the country to different clinics and places and find people and work with them to create poems in their neighborhoods, in their communities, and then sort of do like a map, so that there's a place where we can go. Because they're out there. They're different organizations. Facing Addiction does it. The other gentleman who was involved in posting this one on Facing Addiction was Ryan Hampton, who works for the Huffington Post. He writes about these things. So they put the stuff out there. But if the mainstream doesn't drink it up, then it sits on my page with 65 views. I can't make it popular. Luckily, I have some friends now in higher places that get it out there, but I need all of you. Hey, friends, let's make some magic. 2 more questions, yes.
Hi, I'm a special education interventionist, middle school.
It's on, you just got to be a little closer to it. Yeah.
I'm a special education interventionist in a middle school. Do you have curriculum that can be adapted for students with special needs?
Yes. Which is to say that it is only as complicated as the vessel that's delivering it. So you as a teacher, I'm sure, have created or taken other curriculum, and so this particular exercise, which is like write a poem to your older self, is something that I think with the words that I already have on paper, you could find a way to simplify so that it could be processed by the young people that you're working with. So the answer is yes. If you get, I think we get like 60 of them, and I say maybe 20 of them are in the middle school aptitude as far as like appropriate for school, and then you can do as you will. But yeah, definitely. Anybody else want to talk about something? Yeah, we got a question. Wait for the microphone, because they're recording and they're very serious.
Actually, two things.
Yeah.
I think as parents and as clinicians, we forget, we deal with behaviors, and at least I can speak for myself, I have a tendency to forget the underlying feelings that drive these behaviors, the anger, the shame, the trauma, and we get frustrated by the behaviors, but if we think about the feelings, we'd think about this situation a whole lot differently. Yeah. And the second thing is, are you on Instagram?
I am on Instagram. Yeah, man. Joseph LMS Green. I'm on Instagram. Find me. My beautiful son. Go ahead.
Yeah, I love what you're doing, totally, but I have a project for you since you asked for it.
Oh.
Another tribe that needs to be heard is the kids that make it all the way through high school and never trying a drink or a drug. And I call them kids from the other side because they've been ignored. I actually did a documentary on them, and I'm showing it to 6th and 7th graders to try to promote, never ever trying and having a blast.
Yeah.
But I was thinking some of your work, if you could focus on the kids that never did a drink or drug and they're seniors in high school and let them speak their word to the middle schools
Okay.
to promote that.
Yeah, I can respond. And when I go into a school, I don't ask who's done, right? I see what you're saying, that I need to, and I agree, put a little more emphasis on promoting the ones who write poems, but the ones who don't write poems about their actual drug use, they tend to write poems about the people around them who are using drugs. And there are other workshops that we do also where we are trying to get young people to think about the positivity of what's going on. So the job before last, I started an online marketing campaign called Living the Example. And what that was about was, we want to know how you are out there being drug-free so that we can use you as an example to show to your classmates that there are other ways to get that juice, to get rid of that feeling, to find a way to turn whatever that angst is into something positive. So I would love to talk to you. I guess we just had an offline conversation that we can expand on. But I think also it's important to find the victories, right? And highlight the victories for young people also, because we can't just be sitting in this like morose place where we're only trying to promote things that, make people cry. We need to promote things that make people cheer also, to show them that there is another way to live once we've gotten them out of whatever frame of mind or environment that they've been in. So yes, I completely agree with your point, and let's talk more. Any last question before you get your specially made poem? What does LMS stand for? All right, so you get 5 choices. If you pick right, I'll tell you. Low moral standards, like my status, last man standing, Little Miss Sunshine, lascivious male. I can't say this here. It's wrong group. This is not a. You know where it was going. It's probably not that one. Let's go with the top 4. You only get 4. It's last man standing. So when you're 19 and you want to be a poet and you used to want to be a rapper, you find like this middle ground between your really silly rap name that you had and like your poet name. And in spoken word poetry, a lot of us have nomenclatures where we have, this is our spirit animal or whatever, but I wanted to find something that balanced. So my brother had just seen a really bad Bruce Willis movie, and he was like, dude, be LMS, right? Last Man Standing, really awful film, don't go out and watch it, but then don't tell people what it stands for and it'll create mystery. And so, which is what it has done is also made it really hard to like publish and like brand myself, because I've been Joseph LMS for 10 years. I was like, I'm gonna drop that. You know how many people come up when you Google Joseph Green? Too many. So anyway, yes, do we have one last question? Anybody? All right, cool. Let's do one more poem. Yeah, one more poem. And then you get to do that. This poem is called St. Jude, which I think is doubly funny. But speaking to the lost cause, the patron saint of lost causes. St. Jude in 2 parts. Before I forget, thank you. Thank you. I don't have the ability in this moment to quickly articulate, but you and your eagerness and you and your questions and you and your appreciation for the young people that I work with, and you choosing to be here tonight amongst the places in this really shiny town that you could have been at, ASAM for seeing me somewhere and taking a risk and saying we're going to bring something that typically doesn't exist in this space to this space. Let's see what happens. And to the film crew and to the sound crew, to Jen and Molly, wherever you are, thank you again. And I'm really busy, but I'm accessible, right? And I mean that. It's really hard to say. Like, sometimes it takes 2 emails. Sometimes I don't get back to you for 3 weeks. I have a 70-hour-a-week job and a 3-year-old back at home. But I will get back to you. So if you really would like to have this expand, and not in a bring me out and pay me to do something way, but just in a, hey, this is a good person to know. Whenever I have any questions, his page will constantly have resources that I can use and inspirational poetry and things of that sort. Find me, follow me. Let's network. And this is for you. St. Jude, Part 1, Facing Truth. May we lost causes find at the end of our sobriety that which we could never find at the bottom of our addiction. Salvation was never there. Trust me, I looked often, and with the thorough eye of a man willing to face anything except his own truth. My truth is a relentless and unforgiving lover who has always refused to assume the role of mistress. She would lay with me when I thought I was alone, sit next to me on the train when I thought I was running away, and if you adjusted the frequency just so, I could hear her whisper, I can set you free. She was there the day I sat shaking in the corner of my drug dealer's kitchen waiting for him to fall asleep so that I might creep into his stash spot and place a Band-Aid over this bullet wound of an addiction. She was there the day the man who welcomed me in like a son said, like Christ to Judas, I know it was you. Selfish son, seething with the serpent's intent and sinning fingers, stealing from the cash register his money, his trust, but somehow never his faith. She was there the day my closest friend stopped speaking to me. He recognized the signs, had been there before, and refused to be on the receiving end of yet another suicide note. She was there when I learned what the world had taught me was a moral failing was in fact a disease, a poison passing effortlessly through the veins of my family tree. She told me to never forget. Recovery is to redemption as love is to forgiveness. Where you find one, the other is always there. Part 2, St. Jude's Guide to Rebuilding Burnt Bridges. 1, like all lost causes, finding yourself has to start with acknowledging where you are. Embracing your truth is staring into a mirror you shattered with your own hands, trying to recall the last time and what you looked like when you felt whole. It is bloody work. But there will be no change without sacrifice, too, except that if the universe is to ever extract the remaining usefulness from us, forgiveness has to be an olive branch we eventually extend ourselves. We must fall out of love with punishing ourselves for the punishment our actions have inflicted upon others. The damage is already done. Apologies are necessary, but I'm sorry will only ever be a bucket of sand trying to smother a forest fire. Redemption is a choice. Happiness is only sustained by gratefulness. You never get to forget, only move on and be thankful. 3, seek to embody the spirit of St. Jude. Let us use this life and this light and these words as a beacon for anyone who has ever considered themselves a lost cause. We fight for the damagers and the damaged, the feared and the fearful, the breakers and the broken, to remind them that they are not alone. We are all here hurting and healing together. We fight for the millions we have lost, for their loved ones searching for purpose amongst the embers of lives extinguished far too soon, for entire communities that have been ravaged by a system that has far too long punished the crime instead of treating the disease, for those working the system from within the system, attempting to restore humanity, to restore dignity to spaces far too often sacrificed for the financial or political bottom line. Together, we can rebuild burnt bridges. Not just by holding close to what we are fighting against, but by holding closer to what we are fighting for. Amen. Thank you. I'll be right here if anybody wants to chat.